I'm gonna give that a second just to make sure everything's good, but there we go. All right, why is it a black screen? Awesome, cool. So what we're doing is not hearing myself. One second. That's because I have too many audio things. All right, cool. All right, everything's good. So this is just going to be a casual Friday stream. So happy Friday. Or I guess I don't know. What we're going to be doing is building a game. This game. So I have a workshop that I am helping with next week, and we wanted to build a game so that it was easier for people to play it. And the idea is that they can make changes to it and kind of help learn how to do open source stuff. So to do that, I need to make this work a little bit nicer. There's still a few things, so we're gonna stream this and see how this goes. But this is the game. It's my getting started project, which is basically Flappy Cube. This is probably my go-to like intro to game dev thing, because there's one input, so you need to learn how to do inputs. There's physics and collision, and that's about it. Problem is, all of this is like really hacked together just because I'm still learning how to actually do this, so I don't actually know what's going on. So we need to kind of fix this up. I want to actually get a real game loop going rather than manually having everything do all of that. So we're going to add scenes. We're going to add an object list so we can actually keep track of all the objects in our scene. And that means I'm going to need to learn how to do JavaScript classes, because I don't know what I'm doing. And so we're going to kind of figure it out. The intent behind this is this game requires no developer environment and can be built and run entirely in your browser. So the entire thing is built in JavaScript. You don't need Node. All of the other external dependencies are coming from a CDN. So it's hopefully really quick to get started. There is a GitHub repo that I should pull up, called something. Let me go and figure out where that is. So what did I call this? Cubefly, that's the name. So if we go and pull this up, I can open this. So now we get our cube flying game. And so this is just the repo for this. Would encourage you actually, if you want, make changes. Can't guarantee that I'm going to get them merged in. But the intent behind this is to kind of be like an introduction to open source. So people can actually iterate on this. Some of this probably won't get merged. Lots of what I'm going to be doing over the next week is kind of documenting all of this because it's a big to-do for me. But what this does is run. So you can just open this up and you get the game. And it supports mouse, keyboard, and controllers. So you can actually use a Xbox controller and play it, or a mouse, or a keyboard, or touch. So if you have this on your phone too, it also works. So that's what we're doing. And then I just need to make it so you can actually lose, so the score works, so there's obstacles, and so we have a screen. The problem is, right now you immediately load into the scene, and that's not good. We need to get that out of the way. So that's what we're going to be kind of working on. This is probably going to be, I have meetings in about 3 hours. So that's probably the hard deadline for when this is going to have to stop. But until then, we're going to build a game. So that's how this all works. I can show you the code. The code is really, really sketchy JavaScript, just because that's what I've been doing. So you have an index page. It's pulling in all of these Babylon source files that actually run the game. Then we have some CSS styling. Most of this is coming from a template, so I didn't do that. The only thing that is important is we have our canvas that is expanded to fill the screen. That's why the game takes up the entire screen. And then that's the canvas that we're using. So we're just using an HTML canvas to render the entire game. So everything gets rendered there. And then touch gets handled by Babylon, which is our 3D rendering thing. And then I'm including each script individually here. There's probably a better way to do this. I haven't figured that out yet though. So that's something that I want to get kind of addressed, because right now, every time you add a new script file, you need to make sure you add it into here. And that's not great. So ideally we would just include the entire module and it would work. But it isn't a module. So things to do. But yeah, that's how this works. And then it just loads each of these and then you get your game. The main brains of that ends up in here, where we find the canvas that we're rendering to, start the engine, create a scene, and then manage all of this and actually run everything. I just did something weird. All right, let's do that. And then we can handle like resizing windows and everything. So it all should be fine. Like if you rotate your screen or something, it should still work. Some of that I haven't tested. And then yeah, the main stuff that gets started is we have a render loop and an update loop. So register before render just happens immediately before rendering the scene. So that's when all the updates happen. So we update our game, then we render it, and then we just loop, and that's the entire thing. And so most of that is happening in this update game function, which just updates the player. That's all we have. This is the part that I want to change. This should have scene logic, so we can actually switch between different states. So there's going to be a main menu, which is basically press any button to play, and then the playing the game part, and then the end of game part. Each of those are going to be separated into their own different things. And then the other thing I want to do is actually have like a list of objects. So it's easier to actually just add a new object, because right now you need to actually come here and make sure you update that object, or it's not going to actually do anything. So that's the intention. And then here it's literally just creating the scene. So we have a camera, and then a light source, and then a floor and a ceiling, and that's it. That's all that happens. So actually, if I go back here, that's what you see here. You see a floor and a ceiling. That's the black bit, just because the light's going down. The score is somewhere else, and then we have just the camera rendering things. It's a fixed camera, so you can't move it. It just sits there. And that's that. Then the text gets rendered here. For your multiple import on the HTML file, pretty sure you can use doc WriteLine to write the script section. I don't know what that is. Create a single JS file to import them all. Okay. So this has been an exploration, me learning JavaScript. My background is like, at least here, a lot of what I'm trying to do is pull in like monogame and XNA stuff and use that to kind of wrap into the JavaScript. I don't know JavaScript, so I'm lost. So I'm kind of hoping we do have time to kind of dive into like either a JavaScript module or something else. There are some interesting restrictions on this project just because of what we're trying to do. This should be something that you do not need a really like nice or pre-configured development machine on. The intention is that, well, I can actually show you. So if we go here, let's go into our game. This is on GitHub. So just kind of talking a little bit about GitHub. Let's go and change the font. So if we go into our HUD, we can see that right now we print score, and that looks like that. Let's go and swap that out. So let's just, I'm not signed in. There we go. Let's see if that works. Cool. I need my phone. And so we're gonna sign in here, and I think, there we go. Neat. All right. So we sign in, we go to our game, and this is something you all can do too. So it doesn't just have to be me. If you want to submit an update, I can't guarantee that I'm going to merge it, but but the intention of this was to kind of give you a way to explore open source. So if we go and click this, I can change this to maybe instead of score, it's going to say high score. So our high score is now 100. And this is just the UI stuff. This is intended as something that you could do from like your phone if you wanted to. So let's go and update text box to be a high score screen. And so I can do that, create a patch. Let's do Runic to add high score text. Proposed change. Cool. All right, so that's going to open this, which is going to create a pull request for us. So we open that pull request. And what this is going to do is block my merge, but then it's also going to kick off a bunch of fun things to actually build and deploy this into a test branch. So without doing anything, without having a developer environment on my thing, I can run this on my phone. I can make this change from my phone and go and grab this deployment preview right here. And then we can open this up and we get an error because I need to fix that. But now we have high score 100. So this is our development preview of my change, done entirely in the browser without you needing to do anything. So that's the cool bit here. That's sort of what we're kind of working on. I'm going to close this now. There we go. Let me see. I'm behind on chat. Why are you using? So yeah, we're intentionally not using Unity because this is intended for students to kind of help them kind of make their first open source changes. So like that flow that I just showed, you don't need to have a developer environment set up to do that. We don't want to require you to install Node. We don't want you to have to use Godot or Unity or something like that. The original plan was to use something like Godot because there's less code required to actually implement the actual gaming logic part. But then you need everybody to have the editor and you need everybody to be able to run that on their local machine. And that's just more complicated. So this, you just saw I did all these changes without ever leaving my browser. And that's sort of the power that we're aiming for. I'm not saying this is the best solution for everything. Probably maybe not ideal for lots of things, but for what we're kind of thinking about here, this was actually a really interesting way to kind of approach it. And it just works. So that's cool. Yeah, I think that's mostly it. Let's actually build some things. So it's been a long time since I've done like monogame and XNA stuff, like a series of years. So I don't entirely know how to do all of that anymore, but we're going to kind of make it up and try to make it work. So I think what I want a game state manager. I don't know the naming conventions for JavaScript. Is it caps, like camel case? Or is there a hyphen and it's all lowercase? State manager.js. Sure, let's try that. I don't think it matters. And lots of this stuff is stuff that I can change later. So it's not a big deal. And what I need this to be able to do is have a list of current objects. So var current objects. And I'm just laying this out to kind of make this nicer. And some of this will probably change as well over time, just because as I think about this and talk with people, let me know. Also, if there are things that do not make sense, please let me know. Because they're probably not going to make sense to a lot of other people. And so it'd be great to document that or do anything else. This is mostly intended as just like a hacky stream for us to kind of work on this and hopefully get things a little bit nicer. If you haven't tried this before, we're using a tool called Babylon.JS, which is this. It's a WebGL JavaScript / TypeScript game engine. So you can create like mixed reality or just 3D games pretty quickly in it. And it's very similar It's less like Unity and Godot and more like monogame, if you're familiar with that. So JavaScript and TypeScript is my world now. Be as hacky as you want. Absolutely. It is not mine, and so I'm just doing things that work. There are lots of globals that I have introduced in this that should not be there, like the camera and whatever a sphere is. I don't even think that's used anymore. Let's just delete that and pretend like it needed to be there. Also, let's create a new branch and do game state management. Creating branches just because it'll be a lot easier, and I will get those nice previews before merging things into main. So we do that. There we go. And yeah. Anyway, if there are JavaScript things that you catch and are like, oh, fix this, also would be great, because I don't actually know what I'm doing. Yeah, that's something else. State manager, current objects, var current state, current screen. So this is going to be enum to track game state, main menu, playing, and game over. I'll have to think about that a little bit. But basically those are the three states. And also want to be very clear here, we are not designing this as like a general purpose solution for everything. This is intended to be a solution for this specific project, which is like a Flappy Cube type game. So there will be a cube that you press one button for, and that moves you up and down. That's it. That's all that this is going to do. And so we just need a main menu. That means you don't just load in and lose immediately. We need the playing states when you actually play the game. And then game over is just for like, you lost, let's reset. And the game over and the main menu could be the same screen. There's no reason that doesn't need to happen. So actually, let's do that. Means less work for me. So that's the idea. We might just do, what's the best way to do this? So we have current objects, and I could, well, this will be fine. So current objects is just going to be a list of all the current objects, which we do not have anything of. Let's do current game objects. And let's just leave a note here, collection of all game objects in this scene. And we're doing this so that I can isolate update loops. So what this means is that I can write a for each loop to loop over all of our game objects and call their updates individually. That seems better than manually having to assign each of them, because we're going to add obstacles and there might be more or less. It also means we can add like a score pickup or something, like a coin that you could pick up and score points with. Because I don't actually know how the score is going to work yet. That's probably something to figure out later. So there's that. And then let's create a game state. For now, I'm just making these like global functions. The intention is to isolate these into components later. But for this right now, just while I'm getting my thoughts out, I don't actually know how things are going to compartmentalize. So we're just doing this. And then what this is going to do is do a for each of our current game objects. And invoke its update. Yeah. I think that makes sense. And then the only other thing I want to do is pass in a value here, because Babylon's delta time, so scene.delta time, is not like other game engines. It's not going to give you a list of fractions of a second. It gives you fractions of a millisecond. And so we want to actually divide that by 1,000 and do this. So we can figure out our delta time like this. I think let works in JavaScript. I'm going to pretend like it does, and we'll see if I get errors later. But this gives us our like main game update loop. The one thing I don't think we need is we don't need an initialization function. Is that true? So I should talk quickly about why that is. What we're doing here is looping through all of our game objects. The problem with that is that game objects can create other game objects. Think of like a ship that shoots. That causes a problem if you're looping over the thing and adding elements into it at the same time. Especially in like C# if you do a for each, that causes all kinds of issues. This is, yeah. So typically what you would do is you would put things into like a constructed list, and then you would construct them all afterwards. So after this loop finished, you would then do like a current game objects. I don't know if this is a thing in JavaScript, but we're just going to say append new game objects. You would do something like this. And this is great, but it means that you then need like a special function to instantiate these things, because otherwise, how does this work? So maybe that works, or maybe there's a better way to do this. Also, this is something I don't actually know. Again, complete JavaScript noob. JavaScript class? How does this work? Let's go in. Okay. So classes actually do exist. I was under the impression they didn't, and that you would just have to like nest your data structures. Is there any sense of like inheritance in JavaScript? I know there is in like TypeScript, but I don't know about JavaScript. Here we go. Animal, dog extends animal. Okay, perfect. I think we're using ES6. So I think we want to kind of derive from this structure. So it looks like we can have constructors, which is perfect, and we can just have an update loop. Okay, cool. So let's actually create a new file and call this our game objects. All right, let's stay consistent. Cool. And this will be a game object. All right, there's going to be a lot of like Unity speak and other weird terms that I'm just used to using that are going to leak into this, but that's okay. Constructor, we have update, which is going to take a function for the delta time. Cool. All right. So our update receives all this. This is good. This can be empty. That's fine. We're just going to have a list of game objects that you can derive from that are going to have an update function. This means we don't get any errors that they don't exist, because we're defining it here, and then everything can just derive from that. So then I can wrap our player in this update loop. We're also, do we want them to be in the constructor or have like an initialization function? I don't know. I don't actually know the best way to like structure things. So we're gonna just kind of make choices and then regret them and change them later. So we'll have an init and a on destroy, I think. So this is for handling game object lifecycle. So initialization will be like rendering and creating the graphics that you need in case you need those. So for example, like our HUD. When we create our HUD right now, we create a texture, and then we create a text block. There we go, got the words. That writes to that texture, and then we add that. So that's all in the initialization thing. But if I ever want to get rid of that, I can't do that here. That doesn't work. So I need something to destroy it. So onDestroy will do that. Our initialize will work for initializing everything. And then our update will be our normal updating loop. And I don't think, I need to double check, but I don't think we need anything else for managing other stuff. Also, I might be overlooking some of the Babylon stuff. Like Babylon might support some of this stuff. I just don't know enough to be able to use it. For example, the scene rendering. I don't know how that works. It's all handled behind the scenes. So we don't need to do any of that, but we do have our update game. So, yeah, I think we're good. We have our update append. Cool. And then new game objects isn't a thing yet, so let's go and assign that. Collection of new game objects to be created at end of frame. Cool. And then we can reinitialize this, so wipe this out. Just assign it back to an empty list so we don't just reconstruct the same thing every frame. That would be really bad. And then other than that, current new objects gets added there. The only other thing we do need to do before we clear out our new game objects is for each of them. Let's do this. Let's go and invoke that init method that we created to actually initialize everything, to say, hey, this has been created, go and do that. This could be done inside of a constructor if we wanted to, but no. I don't know if there's going to be any issues with that, so we're going to just avoid that. And that way you can just implement everything this way. I think it'd be fine if you used a constructor. I'm just not going to. Guess we'll find out. So we want game object dot init initialize newly created objects. Cool. So there's our update game state. Var create object something like this. And then this function is going to take in our game object and just append it directly to that. And I think that's all we need for that. We don't need to do any of the logic there because the initialization happens down here. So that all should be good. I think that makes sense. And then the only other thing we need is a queue for deleting objects. The reason we have a queue for deleting objects is because if we don't, we have the same issue with modifying a for each loop that we are currently iterating over. And potentially could be worse if we have like an array list and we're iterating over that array list. If we remove an object that we've already updated, everything else is going to shift back to make up for that, and we could actually lose an update on another object somewhere. So best practice that I've learned is to just create queues for these things and then do them after the update. So do update, create, delete, or update, delete, create, whichever one makes sense. But just separating these operations out makes it a lot easier. So destroyed game objects. And then we can just enqueue this. destroy object. There we go. Cool. All right. Yeah, I think that's that. I will document those later. And then we need to do the same thing here. So destroyed that. What else is going on here? Instead of appending, we just need to remove. So that's what we're going to do. That remove. That's not the function, is it? It's pop. No, that doesn't seem right. What's the value for this? So we can append to add something to our list. I think that works. I haven't tested any of this, so who knows? Doesn't look like there's a remove, so we're just going to type remove and then try it and see what happens. Inside of our thing. What am I doing? There we go. For our destroyed objects. Do this, instead of calling init, we want to call on destroy. Destroy removed objects. Cool. And I think that's everything we need. So this will destroy them. We need to actually remove them from our updating list so they don't get new updates, because that would be really not great. What's the destroyed game objects? There's going to be a way to do this, and it's not any of these. So let's go and figure that out. JavaScript remove filter splice. Okay. Is there a better way to do that than splicing out a section of your array? I guess that makes sense, but that seems weird. Okay. Start, delete. Okay, cool. Let's try it. Destroyed game objects dot splice. The problem with this is our destroyed game objects and our other objects are not in the same thing. If we were actually like really designing this, there's probably better ways to do this. For example, having like another array that is in line with our current game objects that shares an index, and then is just like a Boolean true or false of should it be destroyed or not. That could be something maybe a little bit faster than looking up the new index every single time we want to delete something. For this, we're going to have like one deletion a second, which is not a problem. So we should be fine. So splice. Index of. And we are going to go and find our object. Does this work in JavaScript? I guess we're going to find out. There's a better way to do this. We're going to undo all of this because I don't like it. Instead, yeah, I'm going to get rid of that. And we're going to take, when we destroy our game object, we're going to take game object dot destroyed equal to true. Cool. All right, much easier. game objects var destroyed equals false. Is this a thing that I can do? It doesn't like this. Okay, so you just don't declare your values? That's interesting. Okay. This dot destroyed equals false. Cool. And then we will add a function here for destroy. That's going to do this destroyed equals true. All right. So this is just going to handle destroying things. The advantage of doing this is that if I go back to here, now what I can do is actually access that. So I should be able to actually look, and we shouldn't need to do an index of at all because we'll have it. So instead I can do my for each again. We're going to remove our destroyed objects thing. We can keep the splice, but we want to use our index. And I think I can do something like this. Does this work? For each value index. Yeah, perfect. All right. So this is going to give us the object that we're destroying and the index of that object in our array. So we can grab our current game objects and splice out that. Does this work? No, because I don't have, because I have to do this a different way because now we're in the same loop again, aren't we? Just to quickly talk about why this is a problem. We can't update a system that we're iterating over at the same time unless I do it in reverse. If I do it in reverse, it would be fine. So maybe that's an option. Is iterate in reverse over all these objects and destroy them that way? Yeah, let's try that. How do I go backwards? Okay, so reverse is a mutable function. Well, that's not what I want. What I do want is something else. For each, I can't do that backwards, so we're going to have to manually do this, I think. Okay. What? What do I have to? There we go. All right. Was getting my snippets mixed up. Let's do this, and we are going to go backwards. This is going to be an interesting thing to explain, but it'll be fine. Is less than 0. I think that's our termination value. Is if our index becomes less than 0, we're good. So this should start at the length of these objects minus 1, because arrays are 0 indexed. So the length will be greater than the size of the array by 1. We subtract the 1, that's fine. And then we go until we're below 0. So that should cover all of the elements there. And that gives us our index, which we can use to get our game object. So I can do current game objects at our index on destroy. There we go. And then splice out that index. And I think this, if I understand how all of this works, this is supposed to be splice. This should do that. And then we can just do that and reassign the list. So it should all work. I don't think splice. I guess we can take a look at the docs. Okay. Everything in JavaScript just mutates itself. That's cool. Neat, I guess. We'll just do that. So I think that's our game loop. Took a little bit to get there, but hopefully this makes a little bit more sense. We have our current game objects that's going to handle default game loops, and then object creation queue. That's going to handle pulling things out of our creation queue. So anything that would have been created gets created at the end of the frame after everything else is done. And then everything gets destroyed. So we destroy anything else. Oops, that should not exist anymore. I think this makes the most sense. And then we can just get rid of everything. The only thing this doesn't account for is recursive deletions. You can't destroy anything during the onDestroy function of your object. Or at least it might behave a little bit weird if you do. We don't need to worry about that because we have nothing that's going to do that. So I'm going to ignore that issue, and we're gonna move on, just for time's sake. Yeah, hopefully this creates and deletes things. What this means is that now I need my player to extend a game object. So let's do that. Player class player extends game object like this. And let's see how much of this I understand. Don't know what that is. So we're gonna ignore it. Let's see here. State, what do I call this? Manager. And I need to fix this too, because this is gross. But whatever. It also causes a bunch of issues, like so occasionally right now if you run this, you will see a white screen. That's because one of these is initializing in a weird way. And because it's all just raw JavaScript, it's doing weird things. And that's just me not understanding JavaScript. That's not any other issues. So there we go. That gives us our game objects. That gives us our state manager. And it should all be good. Neat. All right, that's a completely separate project. Let's see here. What are we doing? I think I need to implement my player, move it into as a game object so that it can do its own thing. And then what else? I think that's it actually. Because I can manage the rest of the state using fancy tricks. So if we go into our game, we can swap this out with our update game state. Is that the name of it? State manager. Yeah. So we update our game state. Everything's good. And that's our game loop. Cool. Done. Now we just need to implement our player. And is this how this works? Class, game object, needs a constructor. That's where we're going to actually put all of our player stats. So this dot velocity is going to be equal to this. I need to invoke. Yeah. All right. So I need to call the super method to invoke the base method. So let's do that. Game objects, We don't need a name. There's our player. Cool. And then it has a velocity and a constant. No, that can stay a constant. And honestly, should probably be moved into the constants file. Let's do that. Neat. All right. So player does all of that. And then I just need to implement some of the methods, which I think, can I just use the super invocation again to do that? Does that work? Well, guess we'll find out. I don't really need to actually do that, but we're going to do it anyway. So we have our update, which just does this. And then our game over function. What is on player flight? Oh, that's handling inputs. That's what's going on there. And then capping velocity. Okay, so all of these can get rolled into this as their own separate things. And then we just need to make them nicer. There we go. Neat. All right, so test game over is just testing to see if we have exceeded the game boundaries. That's how you lose. On player flight is called to actually fly the player. I need to change how I do input to make that work. But everything else should be fine, so I'm going to delete all of this. And so this is one of the, I guess, cool things of working in Git. I'm just deleting code and moving things around and changing all this. I have tested none of it. It's very possible that I've broken like 30 different things, but it doesn't matter because if it is broken, I have a backup. So I can just go back to that and everything's good. So now, what do I want to do? Our update gets a delta time. I need to remember that, which means I no longer need to do this. I can just do times delta time in both of these locations. That's convenient. Cool. And then I can move this comment to our game state manager. Right here. Neat. All right. So I think we're making progress. We'll actually try playing it in just a bit because I think we're getting close. What I'm really trying to do is actually get it so that I can manage the player just using this. The only other thing that needs to happen is our inputs need to get managed somewhere, which I don't even know where our controls. Here we go. So let's create a new input controller. And we're just going to set this up so that it works. I don't know the best way to do this, so we're going to make it up again. Constructor, do things. Right now it's trying to invoke on player flight, which is the function that is called when it would fly. Instead, I'm thinking we turn that into a callback and then like do some event-based stuff. Missing a thing. Nope. What have I done? My parentheses are all wrong. Oh, all right, this is wrong. That's what's going on. All right. Let's do this, delete that. All right, that's good. So that's our class to actually create everything. This is going to set up all of our input management. The scene is a global thing, so we can just reference that. Apologies for the train. So on player flight is going to get invoked whenever we do anything with input. So let's call that back and go and do all of the inputty things. So I don't want to do this. This dot on player flight equals a function like this. I don't know if this is the best way to do this, but if we assign this as like a function pointer, I can just go and change that whenever I want. So probably fine. And then our player can bind to that. So we can actually create a new thing inside of our player. So when our player is initialized, constructor, cool. Have an init function like this. Whoa. There we go. Create a new input controller like that. Is this how this works? I'm making this up as I go. I don't actually know if this will work. So we create our new input controller, assign it to be an input, and then we can bind back to that. So bind our on player flight to this. So this dot input dot on player flight equals on player flight. Does that work? Like that? I don't know. If we can't fly, that's why. So let's try it. So we have our new player. Does all this stuff. I no longer need a velocity there. Let's move our comment up so I don't lose all of that. And create ourselves like this. Whoops. Player mesh. Cool. Like that. I think that should work. So we have our player mesh. That's going to actually handle all of this, which means now when I'm changing the position, I just need to do this. And I think we're good. Cool. I think this is all we need to do. All the velocity stuff is good. All of that's fine. All right. So what that means is that I can actually create a player and add it to our game, and everything should work. If everything I've just done over the past like hour works, what I should be able to do is create a new game object using create object. And that should manage everything. And that means inside of here, I can get rid of that. And then inside of here, let's do just create object. Oops, new player. All right. I'm not very confident that this is going to work, but that should create a new player. Everything else should be localized inside the player, which means that this should update. So let's update this. Wait. Oh. That's the online version. I was very confused. All right. What's broken? Lots of things. Player is not defined. Neat. Okay. Yeah. All right. So let's move this here. This is the part we might need to go into modules because this is the part that is annoying. File not found. GameObjects.js. It's not called that. It's called GameObject. Neat. All right. Let's try this again. Scene is not defined. Neat. All right. JavaScript modules. How do I do this? Because I think a JavaScript module is what I want, right? And then I can work from this, and then I just need to export everything. Is that right? Full disclosure, do not know JavaScript, so don't know what I'm doing. But and does this require like Node or anything? Because I would like to avoid that if we can. Okay. If there's anybody with advice, that would be really helpful. But otherwise, I'll just guess, I think, and try to figure this out. All right, let's try this. We're going to grab our module here and work from this. So instead of that, we're going to go and add a... That's not right. So that's our main JavaScript stuff. Is this what I want? I don't know if it is. Because what I would have to do then is export each of these functions and use them that way. And then I can do imports and exports to make that all work. Which would also mean I'd need to import and export all of these things too. What I don't know is if this is the best way to do this. There might be more appropriate ways to load a lot of JavaScript files. So the reason we're running into this is because we have lots of like circular-ish dependencies in our files that are causing issues, which means one requires the other to exist before doing anything, but they're trying to reference each other and it's causing problems. So I need to figure out how to solve that. We can like slow everything else down and kind of just include everything, or consolidate everything into one file. That would be a lot, so we're not going to do that. And it wouldn't actually solve the problem either. Because it would be executed in sequence, so things would happen anyway. So player is not defined in our scene. All right, I'm going to ignore this for now. That's not how you comment things out. There we go. Wait, so our player is not defined? Oh, our scene is not defined, and then the scene tries to reference the player, and the player is not defined. Okay. um, that's super fun. How do I fix this? Oh, like this. Done. We had duplicate code there. That's why we were getting the weird dependency stuff. Cool. New game objects.append is not a function. Perfect. How do you add things to an array? Push. There we go. That's the name of it. Which means I need to go into our state manager and just push. And refresh. Setup inputs is not defined. That's cool. So I can go into our game and get rid of our setup inputs because it's now contained inside of our player. So our player actually manages everything. So let's run this again. Nope, still broken. Current game objects is not correct either. Push. So this needs to go here. Can I push a collection? I can. Okay, perfect. So I can just give it an array and it will figure it out. Okay, this is just me not understanding JavaScript. So I think I need to explicitly reference this to do that. And that's just because of how JavaScript handles scoping, which is how things get collected. Game object update is not a function. Okay, interesting. If I put a breakpoint there and rerun this, what is my game object? It's the player. And what does the player have? I have an update that takes a delta time. So what? That doesn't make sense. Why aren't we getting a thing? Am I just not understanding how classes work? No, that's... I don't know. So for whatever reason, if I step over this, what's the function for that? Step over. There we go. Everything breaks because our update is not a function. But it is, right? That's what I've done. Haven't I? Update that. Are they defined in a different way that I'm overlooking? Class constructor speak does all of that. I'm not sure. Because we should be invoking this our class when I run this, because we have update and it goes and does its thing. Because it's extending, I can see that it exists. So why is it not invoking this as the name of the function? Is it misspelled maybe? No, that's correct. Does anybody know more about JavaScript than I do? Because I don't know why this isn't working. We hit everything correctly. So if I refresh this, we'll hit our breakpoint again. Our current game object has this. So we get our player. Is this correct? Is maybe... Yeah, I think that might be... I was hoping the debugger would help, but let's try just printing it out. It's a good idea. Console log. Because maybe it's not something, maybe it's actually the collection of the entire thing. So I don't know. I don't know how this works. Let's go and run this. All right. We hit this, so we should be able to step over this. We get our player. So that's why. Is it because, like, here, let's try this. Maybe this will help. And then I can figure out a better way to do this. So we do that. Let's step over it. Perfect. Okay, so that's actually getting our player. So for whatever reason, we're getting back an array, like a set of things. And so maybe I'm like pushing in a set somewhere when I am creating this. I'm not entirely sure. But this fixes it. So if I step now, oh, it still breaks. What? Right, let's go back. Oh, that's because I put the indexing thing in the wrong place. Got it. Okay. It makes more sense now. There we go. Let's update this one more time so we get that change. And then I can step over this. That's all good. I should see a update attached to it. I should be able to step over that. And velocity is not defined. That's perfectly fine. Progress. So all of these are happening in our player. And so for this, I think I just need to be explicit about using this to actually reference ourselves. So this dot velocity means I need to what did I think was going to happen in this function? We're just gonna drop that parameter, it's fine. And then this dot velocity, everything else is using this. All right, cool. That should get us past our player. So step. Cap velocity is not defined. Oh, I need more thises. So we need that for functions we're invoking too. Which means that will have to be there as well. All right, let's try this. I'm going to remove our breakpoint, continue. Progress. We got to the point where we actually rendered the screen. That's good. Why? Did it print this? Oh, because that's our update loop. Got it. What happened here? Cannot read properties of undefined. Huh? Am I just digging myself a hole by relying on this for each loop? Because it seems like it's doing something that I'm not expecting. Like, I'm not entirely sure how this is working. Is it on player flight is not defined? Oh, okay. We can solve that. Let's go to our controls. There we go. And we want to invoke our on player flight. Cool. No, thank you. Neat. Okay. So that handles our inputs. I need to update our player. At least we were getting those issues, which means our update loop is still firing here. Like, so our error count is going up because it's actually in the update loop trying to invoke this, and we're just getting other issues. Let me see if I can get rid of this by... current game objects.length is greater than 0. Alright, that looks weird, but let's see if this is what I need to fix this. No. I mean, the other option is just testing for... Also, I can move this out of this loop. I do not need to recalculate our delta time every update. That's silly. For every object, it's going to be the same. So we don't need to redo that calculation every single object. We can just move it out there, and it's fine. So if game object is not equal to undefined, this feels like a hack because I don't actually know what's causing it. Oh, it's still happening. All right, we're going back to console log. I'm going to log game object because I think our indexing into something might be causing the issue. I think this 0 reference might be not what we want. I think you're right. But what we're getting back from our for each loop is a set. We're getting back a set of things. So I think ideally, Malwez, I think you are correct. That's what I want to happen, but that isn't what's happening right now. And I think that's causing these other issues too. Because we seem to end up with a collection of different things. And so we iterate over this, and it maybe my... Here, let's get rid of that because I just don't like it. And I think it might be this that's causing these issues because we're pushing the new game objects array. That's not what I want. I actually want this to push the game object and then initialize it. I think this might be closer to what we want, and that's probably why we were getting a thing because we were adding it to our new game objects and then pushing that entire thing in. And that was just merging the two arrays, and that's not what I want. So if I try this, it works. So we don't see a player. So that is a problem, but everything else is working. And I actually have like velocities, I'm assuming, inside of here. That's our problem. Our velocity is not a number. Oops. So why is that happening? Let's go into our player and figure that out. Velocity gets initialized to be 0. And then we need to figure out why it isn't a number anymore. What did I add to this to make it not a number? And it was always not a number. Okay. And then I'm assuming that means the position is something weird too. I don't know where to find that. It's probably somewhere in there. That's okay. So our velocity is not a number. We need to make it so that it is a number so that we don't send our objects into wherever space they shouldn't be. Because we're just adding that onto our position, which means something bad happened. So let's fix that. Velocity. That seems fine. What we might be getting oh, that's what's happening. This on player flight. This flight force. Flight force is our other thing. So when we click the button, I think we assign not a number because it doesn't exist. Is that right? Let's find out. And I need to go and remove some of these console log things because that's not ideal. Let's go and run this. Well, that's helpful. Cannot read properties of undefined, reading why. Why isn't our velocity defined? What? That's not right. Oops. What have I done? This isn't good. Because that shouldn't be null. Or not a number. And if it is, something bad has happened. So we have our cap. Oh, that's what's going on. Cap velocity. Just takes one. Player position, all that other stuff. And then I think I'm just going to move this into the init method just so everything's in the same place. I think that makes more sense. Okay, it's working. I can see things. I can't interact with it though. Our flight is breaking. So this is the callback we get when we want to fly. That's really hard to see. So let's jump over here. It's breaking here on line 32. So what's the exact message? Cannot read properties of undefined. Flight force not exist? Is that what's going on? Doesn't really make sense, but let's move it up there and see if that helps. Constants, flight force. That's where I'm hoping to pull that method or that value from. I could be looking at something wrong and it might be coming from the wrong place. So let's move this up here. Velocity. I can spell. cool. And let's run this. Our velocity is undefined. That explains why we're getting errors when I try to read this. Why though? Because it's so the weird thing here is it's very clearly not undefined here because we fall. And that's how all the player movement is done, is velocity. So our velocity definitely exists and definitely is getting updated. So this feels like another scoping issue that I don't know how to solve. Can you put random value in flight force? I don't think so. We are getting a flight force. If I look at our values, we get undefined and 5 printed back out. How is the on player flight function called? Okay, so there's a player initialization thing where we initialize this input controller that gets assigned the on player flight thing from our current argument, and then that is like callback function. So there's an event driven thing. So whenever we press like the space bar or click the mouse, it invokes this, which invokes itself. So it just calls whatever function gets bound to it. That's how I have it set up currently. Because we're doing those callbacks though, I'm concerned I might have introduced some weird things. There's a really easy way to fix this. And that's to delete this entire file. So we might just do that and then move all of this into the player. Because I don't think there's any reason not to do that. So let's do that. Let's just set up our inputs. This done. Set up inputs. Cool. And then we'll go down here, put this at the bottom, set up inputs. Done. All right. That got really easy. I think this should fix everything because we won't be doing all the other stuff. I am going to grab both of these here, and we'll just stick these at the top somewhere. Cool. So we shouldn't be invoking this at all anymore. So let's comment that out. All right, and we're back. So in the past hour and a half, we've done nothing, but now we have a really fancy game update loop, which means I can create new objects, which means now we can actually add obstacles. So this is our game. It's super simple, but that's okay. That's the intent. So neat. Cool. I'm going to delete that entire file. And because I'm paranoid, run it again. We get a file not found error, that's fine. I can just delete that from the HTML. Cool. So let's get rid of that. Perfect. Progress. So that's actually really cool. Now, what do I want to do? There's actually lots of things we can do now because we now have that. We can actually kind of change all sorts of things because I can add the player anytime I want now because it's just instantiated, and then we can do what we want with that. All I need to create a new object is call create object. So let's actually, okay, this is going to be a silly way to do this, but I think this will be fun. Console.log out of bounds. So we lose the game there. Let's create object, new player. Let's create a new version of ourselves. And let's destroy object. this. Does that work? What am I overlooking here? This doesn't support destroying itself, so we're going to get some leaked stuff. Oh. Oops. All right, let's stop that. But it worked. Our destroy didn't work. I think that's what happened. Because we get that. That's not ideal. But there we go. So now we can lose again. Wait, why isn't that working? I don't know. This should work. So I should be able to create an object and create a new player and then destroy myself because I'm out of bounds. And so this assigns my destroyed state to true, which means when I get down here, wait, what? How did this work? Because this clearly isn't doing what it should do. Iterate over everything and destroy every game object we've created? Well, that's not right. Of course that's not going to work. Why does anything work? Because it shouldn't, right? Oops. Okay, that's closer to what I was expecting. Now, if I do current game objects index.destroyed, then do all of this. So we can actually test if the object was destroyed before we destroy it. So what was happening there, the reason it looks like this is I don't have any logic to actually remove the player from the screen. We don't delete the actual mesh that represents it. We just destroy all the stuff that updates it, that handles the game logic. So what I should be able to do now is everything will get updated, and then we'll hit the ground, and that box will die and get kind of stuck down there. And then I can go up to the top and so forth. But every time we lose, we get a new player. And that's what I want, which means what we can do now is have like a main menu where you have to tap a button or do something to create the player. And then we're good, because I can just instantiate that and we have our game loop separate. So that's cool. I just need to make sure it deletes the geometry now. Which player? On destroy is what we were calling. And then we have, yeah, on destroy. So let's go and run that. When we destroy this, I need to remove this. So Babylon dot something. I don't actually know the function for this. Let's go and find it. Babylon.JS. None of those are what I want. Let's go and find the API docs. There we go. And then what we're using is a mesh builder. Okay, so that's what we need to create something, but I want to actually go and delete it. So how do I do that? We have a bunch of classes. Where's the scene? In here. So let's take a look at the scene object, and lots of triggers. Is there like a remove? Here we go, remove mesh. And we just pass in the mesh. Cool. And so for that, we just need to call our scene. So scene.remove mesh, this.player mesh. And then the scene will just keep as a global. That should be fine as it is. And so that gives us a way to clean up after ourselves. And this is because we don't have anything like tightly tying everything together. So our game object doesn't actually keep track of the things it's doing. It's not like Unity where you have like a mesh filter that does that. We have to manage all that ourselves. But it works. So now we no longer get those extra boxes just sitting around. So now you can lose. Cool. So now the only other things that I need to do is add obstacles so you can actually avoid things. Make the score work so you actually get points. And then add a main menu. That's not too bad. So all you need is like if you can click something to do that, then you're good. There might be another way for us to actually kind of play with that, maybe. I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, there's the game. Let's merge this in because we've actually got quite a bit done, which is cool. Add a game state manager. And then I'm probably going to take a break and grab some lunch. And I might come back in a couple hours after I do other real work things. And then we can come back and do all of that. But yeah, there might be another stream sometime afterwards to kind of iterate on this a little bit more. I'll probably take some extra steps. And once I get this done, I will show you what we're actually doing here. Let's publish this. Neat. Let's just create the pull request here, because I can do that. Neat. Merge into main. Refactor game loop updates into a state management system. Cool. Create a draft, create. And I don't know how this looks. Neat. All right. So we get that. What that's going to look like is over here on our pull requests. We'll get this. And hopefully, look, we already have a preview. This is super fast. I like this. So now we can play out like our preview. This is not the live version. This is just the preview for what we just did. So I can constantly lose and the game just resets. The reset is just respawning the player, but that's cool. And then I can merge this. I have to approve it. Have I? Can I review my own pull request? Is that a thing? I might have pre-applied that safety net when I didn't mean to. Merge without waiting for requirements to be met. Sure. Done. Cool. And let's do that. So that gets that should be live now, and then everybody else can play it. So that should go and end up here. I still need to fix this. this white screen is not actually it loading. This is it breaking because it's initialized. I think this happens when you open it in a new tab the first time. The loading order and the initialization of JavaScript is not something that I'm really handling yet. And so it's causing this to happen, but you just have to refresh and then it's all good. And it works. Perfect. All right, cool. I'm happy. So that's that entire loop. I didn't see any pull requests, but if people have them and want to kind of like add some tweaks or something, that's the intent of this project. Can't guarantee they'll get merged, but if you want to like try either exploring GitHub or you just want to like add something to this project, you can. That's the idea. So it's intended as a fun way for you to like learn how to actually contribute to open source stuff. So I am going to go grab lunch. Thanks everybody for hanging out. It's been fun. And I will be back probably in about 2 to 3 hours, something like that, after I do real work things. So thanks everybody. It's been cool. And I hope you have a great weekend. So till I post another thing or do another stream or whatever, I will see you then. So see you, internet.